And it was later than usual, maybe about 2:30, and it was a beautiful day. And she said, so what are you doing with the rest of your afternoon on this beautiful day? I said, well, I've got to go home and harvest a crop of grass. And she said, oh, really? I said, yeah, it's the first time I've grown my own, and I'm really excited. I had no idea how quickly it would mature. And she said, oh, really? You do that? I said, it's really healthy. And I'm doing it every day now. I said, in fact, for about the last couple of years, I've been buying from other sources, and I decided that's too much trouble. I'm going to grow my own. And again, she says, oh, really? I said, yeah, my mom and I sprouted the seeds at her house and kept them in her laundry room because it's kind of dim, and she's got a fluorescent light. Now she's got her hands on her hips. She's saying, yeah? I said, yeah, she's helping me grow it because my dad wants to start as well. And the woman is just looking at me, and I finally said, what? She said, I just can't imagine you would break the law that way. I said, what do you mean? Wheatgrass is not illegal in California. So I'm not a lawbreaker that way. But people sometimes think we might be doing something wrong. Hey, I'm growing wheatgrass faster than I can juice it and drink it, but hey. Yeah, so I have a nice little crop in the freezer. Let's talk about scientific laws, okay? Often when we talk about scientific laws, the first person who comes to mind is Sir Isaac Newton, right? And I love, or used to love, his first law of motion, which basically states that objects at rest tend to remain at rest. And objects in motion tend to remain in motion at the same speed and in the same direction unless they are acted upon by an external force. I don't like that law anymore, and you know why? It's the opposite of what principle teaches. There are no external forces to act upon us, are there? Now, how many of you have felt like you were in motion and maybe you were going in a downhill direction and you needed something from the outside to stop you or to turn you around? But now we know that's not true. The only force we recognize is the internal force of spirit having its being in, as, and through us. There are no external forces to act upon us ever at any time. Newton also articulated the law of gravity. He didn't invent it. Gravity was already there, but he recognized it and spelled it out for us. Basically, the law of gravity states that there is a gravitational force acting between any two objects in the universe. Now, at first, that sounds really good because we know we're all one and that the energy of spirit is everywhere and that like draws like unto itself, that what we are looking for is looking for us. But it also says that things tend to fall downward, as in the example of Newton's apple, right? Where just as Earth is attracting the apple is attracting Earth with the same force. Okay. Have you ever been anywhere that the law of gravity was not enforced? Nobody's been in space to the moon? Okay. So we pretty much are subject to gravity, and from our perspective, it would appear that everything in creation is earthbound, right? And we speak figuratively sometimes about defying gravity. And we even attribute that ability to certain people or creatures, like birds and the Wright brothers, don't we? Now, they can defy gravity. Gravity cannot actually be defied, but it can be overcome, so to speak, by creating enough force in the opposite direction, which is what birds do when they flap their wings. So if we have ever been bound or held in place by the force of incorrect thinking, which is a very powerful gravitational force, is it not? Yes. Okay. Then we have to counter it with the force in the opposite direction, which is the power of intelligent, correct, principled thinking, what we teach here. And this provides the thrust and lift required to defy the law of gravitational force. And as a result, we get to soar toward our desired demonstration. Nothing can hold us down when we are in truth. We have 2 more laws I want to look at and recommend we break, and I'm not sure how to categorize them. They sort of fit into mathematics, so let's just call them mathematical laws. One is the law of averages. You know about that one, right? Yeah. Do we believe in it? No, we do not. But the law of averages holds that over the long term, probability affects all occurrences, even random events. It presupposes an underlying tendency toward predictability. Okay? Are we ever subject to probability and predictability? No. What does Troward say? Principle is never bound by precedent. It doesn't matter what has happened before. It doesn't matter how many times it's been done by however many people. There is no law of averages. Even if we think we're doing the same thing in the same way every time, there's going to be something different, right? Because we live in a realm of infinite possibility. We are not subject to predictability. We are never subject to probability, only infinite possibility. And finally, and this one is my favorite knot, the law of diminishing returns. How many of you have heard of this one in mathematics, but also across other fields? Basically, it states that continuing after a certain level of performance has been achieved leads to a decrease in effectiveness. So what is that saying? That we can only get so good at what we're doing? Or something can only be so wonderful and then it tapers off? No. Now, this postulate may be proven over and over and over again in institutions such as finance or medicine or economics, but not in metaphysics. In metaphysics, we can only prove the opposite. We don't have a law of diminishing returns. Our law, by definition, is a law of increasing returns because the best keeps getting better. Even if we have reached a point in our spiritual development where everything is so wonderful that we are defying gravity because we're walking on cloud 9, like for me, speaking on a Sunday and Gino singing, it doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't, okay? But it does. See, it does, because the best keeps getting better. It is the nature of divine spirit always to eclipse itself. So it is our nature always to eclipse whatever we're doing, no matter how absolutely fantastic it is. When we have all the health, all the wealth, all the love in the world, and all the time to enjoy it, and all the wonderful people to enjoy it with, God knows through us it's even supposed to get better and better and better. We have a law of increasing returns. So these are some laws. There's about 6 of them we've talked about. I want you to think about these, maybe get the CD, revisit them, and next week, Monday through Saturday, break one each day. And then come back here on Sunday, not to repent, but to celebrate having broken non-spiritual laws in the service of making your dreams come true. See, again, to be a claim staker, sometimes we have to be a lawbreaker, but there's one law we can't break, and that's the law of cause and effect, isn't it? It may sometimes appear we haven't been working it right because we don't like the results we see in our lives, but it's always operational. It just gives to us what we put into it. If we put in a negative expectation, we get a negative result. It's not a punishment. It's not erroneous use of the law. It may be unconscious use of the law. But if we want to be dream makers, it's time to definitely align, to deliberately align, to purposefully align, and consciously align with the law of cause and effect. There's a story about Charles Fillmore that says, he's the founder of Unity. A young woman walked up to him and said, "I had a dream last night that I was so spiritual I could fly." And he said, "Oh, that's wonderful, my dear, but are you so spiritual that you can pay the rent?" Kind of reminds me of Raymond Charles Barker. But what if our dream is just to pay the rent? And maybe it is. That is still the case for some people, and that's not wrong. But it's not the ideal place to be, is it? So if we do happen to find ourselves in a circumstance where dreaming of paying the rent seems as far-fetched as dreaming we can fly. It's time to pay attention and, again, deliberately align with principle. Because when we do, what does this teaching tell us? That the stuff our dreams are made of is divine stuff. That every thought we have, every desire we have, has its origin in divine mind, so it's already complete. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to think it in the first place. So the dream of flying indicates we have the potential to fly. The dream of paying our rent indicates we have the potential to pay our rent. And in between those two extremes, life happens. Everything in between, all the wonderful things that are there for us to dream of and to bring into manifestation. And just like it's the nature of spirit always to eclipse itself, it is the nature of our dreams to get better and bigger, and maybe more outlandish at first. That's okay, because then we can say, wow, what would it look like for me to be so aligned in truth that this outlandish claim of mine is actually commonplace? How many of you have already had that experience in the time you've been in mental science, right? We come in the door and we just think, okay, I'm going to get that front row parking place and I'll be happy forever. And then we get that parking place and we get it again and again, and finally it's every time it's like, well, now what can I do? Well, everything, right? It is typical for us as metaphysicians, once we set our consciousness toward this dream, whatever it is, we stake our claim and move toward it. Even before we get there, we've got a bigger dream already in operation, don't we? And that's how it's supposed to be. So we're a claim staker first, and then we break some laws in order to abide with the only law there is that makes any sense, that is the truth for us, which is cause and effect, allowing our dreams to come true in the process. In the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Holmes writes, know that the greater the abundance of every good thing you are bringing into your life, the more perfectly you are satisfying the divine urge within you. In all caps, he writes, anything you can dream of is not too great for you to undertake. Anything you can dream of is not too great for you to undertake. Think about that. Who has a dream that has yet to come true? Even if you've had 10 million of them come true, you have one right now. Are you ready to stake your claim to it?
Yes.
Okay. And do whatever it takes. Yes. Even if you got to break some laws.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. That's the good part, right? Okay. Repeat after me. I stake my claim to the good.
I stake my claim to the good.
I break the artificial laws of mortal limitation.
I break the artificial laws of mortal limitation.
And abide by the divine law of cause and effect.
And abide by the divine law of cause and effect.
I allow my dreams to come true right here and right now.
I allow my dreams to come true right here and right now.
All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I know this is the truth, and it is absolutely wonderful, and so are you, and so it is.